A mysterious FIDE master, hundreds of frustrated grandmasters, and a lot of media attention. Touted as the James Bond of chess, Borislav Ivanov became the most famous chess player in the world in 2013. FIDE master Borislav Ivanov was just a normal guy studying in a normal university in Bulgaria. His improvement was quite average. He had not gained a single rating point for the past many years, but in December 2012, he decided to change his rating and the life of everyone around him. He sat down and decided to play the Zadar Open in Croatia, which happens every year in the month of December. This is a very strong master tournament where a player like Ivanov didn't stand a chance. Not only was he the only untitled player in the tournament, he was also the last seed and the weakest player. Round 1, he defeats an international master. No big deal yet, but by the 9th round, he had played so well that the jaws of 2600 grandmasters had dropped to the floor. It wasn't just his performance, where he had gained 70 points or so and had finished 4th in the tournament, crushing so many grandmasters, but in the style he was crushing them was very convincing. Let's look at his game against Zenko, a 2600 grandmaster. Here Ivanov played the rook to a3, activating his rook, then rerouted the bishop via f8, bringing it into the game. Once white plays knight to c5, he sacks the bishop on g3 for a couple of pawns. Pawn takes, rook takes, and just have a look at this position. It is so complicated to evaluate, but once you check the engines, you will realize this is one of the best preferences for black. Here, white just lost the game in one move. This was so complicated, even for a 2600 grandmaster. After this tournament ended, everybody was suspicious. So once this game finished, Ivanov was asked to take off his shirt and empty his pockets by the tournament organizers. Everybody was anxiously waiting. Will they catch Ivanov right in the action? But to everyone's surprise, they found nothing. Once the organizers found nothing, they let Ivanov go with an apology and also an invitation to the next tournament. Well, what else could they do? After getting away with what you will soon see as cheating, Ivanov becomes emboldened. He could see the support of the public for him. Whenever ChessBase or any other media outlet would publish an article on this, constantly people would harass the online outlet for trying to defame a young genius player. So people were even scared to criticize him. A few days later, Kenneth Regan, the fair play expert we all know pretty well now, conducted an analysis on all the games of Borislav Ivanov. He said that for a 2300 rated player to achieve the results which Boris Ivanov got, the odds to it are 1,000,000 to 1. He added that even if a 2700 rated player had got the same performance, even that would be surprising. So for a 2300, it's almost unheard of. But what did Ivanov want to say about all of this? There was an interview conducted by Maria Grigorian, and Ivanov was a very colorful man. On being asked if the arbiter requested Ivanov to take off his shirt, he cheekily replied, "Well, I don't know if my body is handsome and beautiful. I don't find it enough to show them the real sexual affection I have for other people around me." What do you think, guys? Well, I would say he wasn't lying. Next statement he made was the smoking gun for me. He was asked, how did he manage to defeat so many strong grandmasters line after line? And his reply was, I practice a lot with the computers, especially Rubica and Houdini, and after beating them 10-0, I knew there was nobody who could stop me. Let me remind you, Rubica and Houdini are the Stockfish and Komodo of that era. No normal player can ever say that. Just imagine any GM coming out right now and saying that the secret of his success is beating Stockfish 15 10-0. Yeah, I defeat Stockfish 15 on the weekend sometimes. It's good to warm up for Candy Crush. However, his beautiful body didn't help him in the next tournament, where he came 88th in the rankings and finished with a performance of 1942. That's way below his normal rating. Once this happened, everybody who supported Ivanov was very vocal. They came to his support, attacked everyone who was accusing him of cheating, saying that now you can see he's pretty much human. He played well in one tournament, it was just a fluke, and now he's playing like a human, so why were you accusing him? Well, I think Boris Ivanov definitely felt the support for him, because in the next tournament now, a rapid tournament he played, he performed at a rating of 2700 yet again, and well, crushed everyone and finished in first place. Even more surprisingly, there was no live transmission in this tournament. So if he was cheating, How was he doing it? Well, the other players clearly wanted to know, because 700 plus players signed a document and sent it to FIDE that they would not play any tournament where Borislav Ivanov was playing unless the anti-cheating regulations were drastically increased. Meanwhile, Boris Ivanov became the most famous man in Bulgaria. In fact, even abroad, the Washington Post, the New York Times were all publishing articles about this. He was being invited to TV shows now, including Slavi's show, which was the most famous TV show in Bulgaria during that time. I wonder if his Uber Eats driver knew his name though. But the fame got to our poor hero. He did not find time for practice now. In his next tournament, he got destroyed, performed at a rating of 1942 yet again, and did not win a single game against players who had a rating of more than 1900. This was again a clear attempt to show the world that he was human. He would play well someday and then worse the other day. While this approach might look stupid to you, you have to understand, from his point of view, it would be much easier to cheat in one tournament and then not cheat in the other than to have alternate games or random games in all the tournaments, and then that would create a more risk factor for him. But as people were catching on, Ivanov adopted a more cautious approach in the Bulgarian semi-finals. According to IM Valery Lov's analysis, what Ivanov did was, when he used to face very strong players, he would change the settings of the engine to go for a draw. So what the engine would tell him is to basically exchange pieces and head off quickly into equal positions. You can see he was becoming smarter, and such a smart cheater will usually inspire others, and you could see multiple cheating incidents happening across Bulgaria and across the world, people who were trying to imitate him, something that we'll delve deeper into other videos. But when the thief gets smarter, the police have to sharpen up their skills. The title players came up with a clever strategy. With the help of the organizers, they created a clever rule. So anybody who would win 3 or more games by forfeit, that is their opponent not showing up, will not be eligible for prizes. The grandmasters did this so effectively, they simply refused to show up for their games against Ivanov, and at the end, even if Ivanov got the first place, he would never win anything. As usual, Ivanov went to other TV channels to complain about how this was unfair to him. He was not being given a chance to win any prize money. Everybody was conspiring against him, and this is when he was hailed as the James Bond of chess. Unfortunately, while he was on one of these TV shows, the Bulgarian Chess Federation did not like being name-called. Ivanov had been calling other chess players antisocial buttheads again and again, trying to insult them for all the accusations. So, the Bulgarian Chess Federation imposed a 4-month ban on Borislav Ivanov for his appalling comments about chess players and the federation, his suspicious chess play, and his incredibly sexy body. Okay, I might have added the last one. Meanwhile, Kenneth Reagan, who's still in the party, revealed to the world that Borislav Ivanov won a rapid tournament with the rating performance of 3149. Which is freaking insane. I am Rombaldini, who also played Ivanov in a game, said Ivanov was simply not even calculating moves. He used to just stare at the chessboard, stare at the chess clock, and never even get up from the seat. All he was doing is staring, as if he did not need to calculate the moves. And of course, Rombaldini got crushed. The arbiters were under scrutiny too. Many of them were very scared to label somebody a cheater, because that would bring negative publicity to the tournament organizers and the sponsors, and then they might be blamed for the negative publicity and will not be invited for future tournaments. Meanwhile, the Bulgarian Chess Federation offered Ivanov a one-time chance to clear his name. They said he will have to go through an anti-cheating test in front of many officials, including a lie detector test, and if he clears that, his name would be absolutely cleared. Ivanov anxiously agreed, and the world felt finally Ivanov would clear his name and all the haters would be shut up. But on that fateful day of June 19th, 2013, Ivanov did not show up. His lawyer at the last moment communicated to the federation that he would not be going through the anti-cheating test. Finally, after 4 months, Ivanov's ban ends, And here a familiar name comes into the picture, Maxim Dlugy. I'm sure the neurons in your brain are firing like crazy right now, but in this story, he's actually the hero. He is the Tony Stark, the Captain America, the Spider-Man, depending on your favorite hero. Oh, the irony. Maxim Dlugy was playing the same tournament as Ivanov. Having been warned before by other chess players, Dlugy was on the lookout. He noticed that Ivanov would constantly fiddle with his shoes and even would refrain from walking at all. So when Dlugy was finally paired against Ivanov, before the game started, he requested the organizers to check Ivanov's shoes. Now remember, before this, whenever any checking was done, constantly Ivanov would immediately agree to this and then embarrass everybody around him. There was no clear evidence against Ivanov so far and was called the James Bond of chess. But Dlugy changed all that. So as Ivanov was requested to move to a separate room for fair play inspection, Ivanov, well, was visibly pissed. But before he went, he took his own score sheet and in front of the white player's name wrote machine, and in front of the black player's name wrote unknown clown. I mean, say whatever you want to about him, but he was definitely funny. Well, after being called an unknown clown, I'm sure Dlugy did not feel so happy about it and was even more adamant on the fair play check. So as they asked Ivanov to take off his shoes, Dlugy said that he could see that Ivanov was clearly anxious. His eyes were moving frantically, trying to come up with some way to get out of this. As the arbiters approached, Ivanov backed down. He said he would not take off his shoes because, can you guess the reason? His socks were smelly. I think you and I have spent enough flights next to people who take off their smelly shoes to understand that this was not the reason. And regardless of how much the organizers tried to convince Ivanov, he simply refused to take off his shoes. No way I'm taking my shoes off, were his exact words. And instead of taking them off, he simply left the tournament hall. Imagine. But the story was just ripening up. Dlugy at that time said Ivanov was too weak to understand when to cheat and when not to cheat, and hence he got caught. If Dlugy himself had such a device and decided to cheat, then he would be beating GMs left and right and would never get caught. I would like to take a pause for 2 seconds. Now, as the focus shifted to his shoes, ChessBase did an analysis and showed how you could easily fit in a normal phone into a normal shoe, and all you had to do was to tap on the phone with your toes to send a signal to the motion detector on the phone, and the response would be vibrations from the phone which would tell you the move. Before I tell you the next bit, remember, psychopaths are incredibly good at convincing you that they have been the victim even though the evidence points directly at them. Shortly after the Dlugy incident, Ivanov retired from chess, and everybody was surprised that this mystery would basically go untamed. He attacked everyone in the chess world for not allowing him to play tournaments, for trying to punish him by taking away the prize money, for accusing him of cheating. And looking at these emotional outbursts from a young man who was playing so well, many people actually fell for it. And you could see in the comments of any news outlets like ChessBase and others, people constantly attacking the organization for putting out these articles against Ivanov. Now you would expect the story to end right here, but his retirement basically lasted less than my last relationship, and it ended just after 2 months. He shows up to a tournament and cruises through a field of grandmasters, crushing everyone. But now people were pretty sure something is sus. Based on what the organizers knew from the past, his shoes were inspected. And this time, surprisingly, Ivanov agreed. And they found nothing. In fact, to taunt the organizers, he even started taking off his pants and asked them if he had to continue stripping. But Ivanov, people aren't as stupid as you might think them to be. And some of you might be catching on to the tricks he was using to get away with cheating at this point. If you've ever seen a magic show, the magician is going to ask you to focus on a single point. Focus here. Something is going to happen here, but suddenly out of the blue, something happens here and you don't even realize it. That's exactly what Ivanov was doing. He knew his shoes would be the target, so he kept them engine free, and when he came out clean, he could embarrass the organizers by trying to take off his pants as well, so that they would never again inspect him. And most people kind of stopped there. But one person did not. Andrei Holgado Mestre. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Holgado noticed that Ivanov was playing with a coat and a scarf. And when he came closer, he saw there was a lump on his back. Holgado told the others they tried to inspect it from a distance and saw indeed there was a suspicious lump on his back. And then they went to the organizers. The chief arbiter said, let's not disturb during the game. I mean, let them finish the game. Just as the game was over, Holgado did not wait for anyone. He immediately grabbed the suspicious lump on Ivanov's back and asked him what the hell it was. Ivanov ran. Ivanov immediately left the tournament hall and yet again escaped. Holgado was asked what did the device feel like. He said it felt more like an MP3 player, but of course he had not seen it with his own eyes. Next day, next round, will Ivanov show up? Everybody was curious, and he did, to everyone's surprise. He sat down in his chair opposite another player who was also leading the event along with Ivanov with a score of 4.5 out of 5. GM Naming Guliev, a very smart man, requested the organizers to inspect Ivanov. They called a retired police officer, Bermejo, to inspect Ivanov. As Bermejo came close to Ivanov's chest, Ivanov backed up. Bermejo felt something suspicious near Ivanov's left armpit. He tries to grab it. Ivanov goes back. As he goes back, one of the buttons from Ivanov's shirt becomes unfastened. And in that moment, the police officer saw a tape strapped across Ivanov's chest. And when he was asked what the hell this is, Ivanov said nothing. His face was red and he immediately left the tournament hall and forfeited the game. Finally, they had enough evidence. A month later, FIDE deleted Ivanov's rating profile from their website. So did Ivanov escape? Was this the end? All those players suffering for months and years at the hands of a cheater? Believe it or not, this story actually has a happy ending. In 2017, more than 3 years later from this incident, when Ivanov was not even playing chess, he was caught by the police. But not for cheating, but for forging official documents like driver's licenses. Yeah. If proven guilty, he would face 8 years in prison for this crime. In fact, there were visuals of him getting caught, which was very weird to see. Anyone who thinks cheating in chess is fine, I think this should be a wake-up call. When Ivanov sat down to cheat in a game of chess first time in 2012, had he envisioned getting caught by the police for forging driving licenses? I don't think so. When we make a choice, we are much more likely to go deeper into a rabbit hole. You're not only affecting the people around you, but also your own character. Play chess in such a way so that when you win, the world celebrates with you. However, there is one more where I personally caught a chess cheater, and you can check that right here next, and I'll see you in that video.